Alright guys, I've made it back where I'm about to fight the boss. I am extremely nervous. I don't know what's going to happen. Here's my thing, we'll find out, but I don't have any heals, that's the only thing. I got increased weapon damage right now. I have, everything I can think of. I'm maxed out health. I can't buy any more health. As far as like, you can buy the thing to like inject the health or whatever, but I'm just gonna kind of go for it. If I die, it is what it is. I really just want to try and see if we can do this. This is the unknown signal. I'm not gonna do that. Yeah, it's great, like getting back to the boss. A lot more different than I expected. Well, the eyes again. Okay, yeah, we're gonna knock these out and then we'll try the boss again. Weapon damage keeps increasing, so I'll take it. Grab these for it expires. Another grenade launcher. I gotta be careful about that. Oh no. It's gonna spawn an enemy. Let's just go, man. Wonder what should I get this? Whatever, let's go. Hey, okay. Here goes. So now I can actually pick up whatever gun it's wanting me to pick up. Shock stream. I mean, obviously, yeah, it's better, but constant fire versus. All right, yeah, I'll just keep this then. I'm so nervous. All right, here we go. It took me a while to get back into it. I think probably like a whole other 30, 45 minutes to an hour. I'm also kind of stay agile as best I can. Keep shooting. The purple ones right here are kind of the ones that worry me just a little bit. Oh, it is here. What?
Yo, this shit was crazy as hell.
Okay, that right there I gotta be cautious about. Oh my god. Okay, what did I just pop there? Gotta keep it going. Oh, I got the thing though, right? my god.
Yo, why does shit look so fucking hard, yo?
I gotta stay. Oh my god, we did it, guys. Let's
Yo,
go.
you beat that shit, though.
Ah.
My bad, I had to watch him beat that shit real quick.
Energy signature is gone. Acquired a new kind of unlocking mechanism. This could interface with a different kind of translocation device.
You guys want to how relieved I am to beat that. I almost gave up for the night. Almost. I've heard once you get to a certain spot, you can then kind of teleport once we get to the second area. Let's see what we got. Stagger, okay. Anything else? Looks like everything's in. Yo, that was intense. Not gonna lie. Honestly thought I was done. Okay, so now what is the location? Open the Crimson Gateway. That's going back. That's not there. That's like way back over here. Which I don't know how far I can take this thing. Right here, I guess. Yo, what a way to get it though. I literally wasn't even going to comment. I was just going to like record me getting it, hopefully. The good thing is, I think if I was to die now, once the objectives are done, it's all good, you know? Because I can die and reset everything, but to that boss fight and just constantly getting obliterated was not it. It kind of scared me a little bit, not gonna lie. Let me see where I'm at. Yeah, we gotta go this way, I think. Nope, wrong way. Back this side. Oh, it's up here, yeah. This is this little area we didn't know what it went to. This is where I got the blade.
The only alternative. To explore the other side.
New ship log
I'll
unlocked.
pass through the teleportation gate. Based on the coordinates of the broadcast signal, I'm from the other side of the planet.
Alright, here's my wondering. I think if I stop now, maybe there's a shipwreck up here I can like, it'll stop that for me. I don't know what's gonna happen. Let me just get up here really quick. This is a brand new area. Alright, so we took out the first biome. That was kind of my goal for today, as I was recording everything.
I'm in a sprawled desert now, detecting another strange energy from a mountain summit, ascending towards destination.
Ooh. I can cleanse this, hold on. I'm not sure like, if I keep going.
Scout log Atra. Beginning ascent of the mountain. I don't know which attempt this is. Despite knowing the hazards ahead, I'm having difficulty retrieving the technology. There are certain obstacles I don't look forward to re-experiencing. But I can feel as though something at the top is summoning me.
Something at the summit is summoning them?
Oh my god, what's with these enemies? Little box shape, I guess. Okay, now we kind of have it unlocked. I'm not too worried about dying now since we did get the boss done. So I'm pretty ecstatic right now. Let's see. Oh, I don't want to do that. Let me get up here and then stop. for now. Seems like another cutscene or something. We'll see. Oh, these guys, so they do like a square. Okay. It's actually kind of intense, not gonna lie. I'm gonna try the whole trick where I leave my PS5 and rest mode or whatever, but I don't know, man. I'm a little skeptical. Like, what if my power goes out randomly? I don't know what to do. Definitely a unique experience as far as gaming goes. I don't know, it's like you die and you have the same objective when you respawn, but you gotta get back to where you were. There's no, like, checkpoints or anything, and you lose everything, too, so... Kind of a unique twist on what I'm used to, but I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of other people that play games that are a lot like this, but I just had never played one of those, so... Oh. We'll go ahead and take that.
It was okay to me. I just, like I say, I'm just a really big fan of like the cyberpunk genre, like that futuristic technology, but in like a gritty ass city. I love that shit, yo. I'm actually thinking about playing Cyberpunk over again from the beginning and starting and just play like a female character and start with a different origin story as a Outlander or something like that. Because I did a Street Kid, and you got Street Kid, the Corporation Person, and Outsiders, Outlanders, or whatever. And so just play it over and start over in a different part. I know if you play the Desert People, the Outlanders, they I think you already start out with a vehicle. Like you get that little hoop ride car. But
Audible is the place to listen. And now with Audible Plus, stream exclusive originals, popular audiobooks, binge-worthy podcasts, and more like our full sleep collection. Stream
about what appeared to be an upside-down pyramid flying tonight. More questions and answers about what appeared to be an upside-down pyramid flying over a Navy destroyer off the coast of California, and a series of pictures showing another mysterious object fly into the water near another warship in 2019. The images obtained by documentary filmmaker Jeremy Corbell. The Pentagon confirming the images are being reviewed by a task force set to brief Congress on what they know about what they call unidentified aerial phenomena. On YouTube, some suggest it could be planes mistaken by lens blurring. Others point to ship logs that called the objects drones or UAVs. But a former official of a Pentagon program that dealt with advanced aerial threats says for years the U.S. military has encountered mysterious objects that seem capable of traveling more than 11,000 miles an hour or able to transition from air to water without slowing down.
Some of these videos are 20, 25 minutes long. In other cases, these things are 50 feet away.
More questions and answers about what...
Some of these videos are 20, 25 minutes long. In other cases, these things are 50 feet away from the cockpit.
But he says most alarming are incursions over restricted nuclear assets.
We've actually had some of our nuclear capabilities disabled by these things. If Russia or China had the ability to disable our nuclear strike capability or defense capability, That's pretty significant. That's a concern.
When we reached out to the Pentagon about those alleged incursions, they say they do not comment on intelligence matters, and Lou Elizondo left the Pentagon in 2017 and does not speak for the Department of Defense.
Our YouTube channel, follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.
This entrepreneur brand logo was done by a top freelancer on Fiverr. Is simply wow. Those stylized brand guidelines that your designers can easily follow, also
Amazing.
Now this guy's website with its lavish content, although it took 4 revision rounds to get the results he imagined, is nothing less than a work of freelance brilliance. Then this designer's new fashion line became the hottest thing on every, okay, that was a bit much, on many fashion blogs, thanks to Fiverr.com freelancers who managed and tracked her Instagram feed. And last, but under no circumstances least, this go-getter had her amazing all-new e-commerce site built. And while words cannot describe it, numbers can. And that feeling of success and taking your brand forward one step at a time makes you speechless. For every step your business takes, Fiverr, freelance services on demand.
These 3 videos, released by the Department of Defense, have changed the way many people see what we can't explain.
The moment you mention UFO, immediately what comes to mind are little green men, tinfoil hats. That's not at all what we're dealing with.
In 2004, off the coast of California, an F-18 Super Hornet training exercise was suddenly interrupted by a call over the radio that would come to define Commander David Fravor's career.
You know, there's some things in your life where you just remember in vivid detail what happened. And that's one of them, because it's honestly the strangest, most obscure thing I've ever seen flying.
Fravor, the commanding officer of the Navy's Strike Fighter Squadron 41, and another F-18 scrambled to check out an unusual radar blip 80 miles off the coast.
So as we're looking around, the backseater in the airplane comes up and says, "Hey, Skipper, do you see?" And before he says it, I'm like, "Dude, do you see that?" As soon as we look down, we see the whitewater, and then we see this little white tic tac. It's pointing north-south, and it's just going forward, back, left, right.
It's just bouncing around?
Yeah, like a ping pong ball.
What was its shape? What was its... what did it look like it was made of?
Like a perfectly smooth white tic tac. Or for people that need a bigger visualization, a giant propane tank.
Fravor says the F-18s began circling, Fravor at 20,000 feet, and the so-called tic tac only about 50 feet above the surface of the water.
And I say, "Hey, I'm going to go check this thing out." And the other pilot stays and says, "Hey, I'm going to stay up high." And then it starts coming up at us. We call it two-circle fight. It's coming up, I'm coming down. So it literally is aware we're there. There's no doubt, because it mirrored me. So here it is. I cut across, and I get to about half a mile of it. You know, so I'm about halfway across the circle. So it's in front of me. It just goes poof, and it's gone. It's gone like that fast.
What do you mean, poof, it's gone?
I mean exactly that. Like, it's 1 minute it's there, and the next second it's like magic trick. So I asked the other airplane, I said, "Hey, do you guys see that?" And they're like, "It's gone. It just disappeared."
When you saw this kind of performance, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
What the hell was that?
Once back on the carrier, Fravor's team told the next crew what had happened, and that crew took off ready to capture something on camera. And this is what they saw. I guess the biggest question is, what do you think it is?
I honestly don't know. I don't think that we have developed that technology. I don't think we developed it on this planet. We still, to this day, have no idea what it was, what we saw, what chased, what we engaged. It was pretty spectacular.
A report from that incident eventually made its way to the Pentagon and crossed the desk of Louis Elizondo, the former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program.
In essence, what the program was an investigative AP Probably in the vernacular, it's better known as the UFO phenomenon. The bottom line here is that over the past several decades, we in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community have been noticing things in our airspace that don't have wings, they don't have cockpits, they don't have even an obvious sign of propulsion like an engine, and yet still they're able to defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity.
In 2020, the Pentagon declassified 3 videos. The Tic Tac video was filmed on the East Coast in January of 2015. Other countries have made similar public disclosures. Also in 2004, the Mexican Air Force confirmed this video was shot by one of their pilots near the coast of Baja California. In 2014, the helicopter from the Chilean Navy locked onto an unidentified object emitting what appeared to be some sort of gas or vapor. Both governments have said they investigated but couldn't determine what the objects were. To those like science writer Sarah Scholes, clipped black and white videos always leave a lot to the imagination.
To me, the most interesting thing about the videos is how little information is in them. All we have are these, 30 seconds or a minute of something totally decontextualized. And so everybody kind of gets to think whatever they want to think about them because we don't actually have enough information to form any kind of conclusion, which is UFO's favorite space to live in, the muddy, fuzzy space.
But, well, 2020 will be the year all of that changes because of COVID-19?
Hidden among the many pages of the COVID-19 bill is this mandate to produce a report on unidentified aerial phenomena. What's different this time is that the military is kind of talking about them very explicitly in terms of threats. It's not like the Pentagon's deal to call things aliens, but that's kind of the angle that they're coming from.
If there is a foreign adversary, let's say Russia or China or anybody else, who happens to have this technology and they've had it for decades, and we in the United States have somehow been strategically leapfrogged in our technology, we've got a big problem on our hands.
Officially, the clause attached to December's COVID-19 relief bill, added by the Senate Intelligence Committee, calls for the military and FBI to brief committee members what they know about UAPs within 180 days of the bill's passing. The kind of top-level briefings Elizondo says he's given before.
The 3 options are, is it our technology? Is it foreign adversarial technology or someone else's technology? Or is it something completely different? We're 99% sure it's not foreign adversarial technology. So that only leaves really one other option. It's someone or something else.
Are these 3 videos the only videos that you know of that the United States government has that shows unidentified aerial phenomena?
No, absolutely not. These are probably some of the least compelling videos. In some cases, we've seen these things 50 feet away from the cockpit.
And when you're talking about something that is 50 feet away, I mean, what could they tell from being 50 feet away?
With all due respect, Guy, I no longer work for the United States government in that capacity. So I want to be clear that I don't want to speak on behalf of the U.S. government, and I also want to give the government time to do what it needs to do regarding this data.
But in science, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
If the UFO field wants to be taken more seriously by scientists, I think they will kind of have to move away from the types of evidence that have historically been held up as adequate, like individual sightings, because the scientists can't really do anything with the story. They need data.
Look, I'm not a UFO guy. My background, I'm a former counterintelligence special agent. I was asked to do a job, which I did. However, it was my understanding, the conclusions that I came to, and by the way, every other person in the program unanimously came to the realization that these things are indeed real. And it's getting increasingly harder to keep the cat in the bag.
Do you ever think that you're going to see something like that again in your lifetime?
I don't know. I look up a lot. I mean, I'm not lying. On a clear night, you just look up and wonder. Yeah, I'll wonder for the rest of my life. I think everyone knows.
Yeah, Fravor, he has a very, very, very compelling story, and the fact that it was his squadron that he was leading, and the fact that it was 4 people in 2 different planes, and the fact that a second squadron went out and got video evidence of it. Ferber said he clocked so many thousands of hours flying for the Navy. Dude said he ain't never seen no shit like that. So he ain't never ever seen nothing like that before. I think that circle way too big. Alright, what if the circle was only this big? We might be in for a storm tonight. Goddamn raining and that wind blowing hard as fuck.
I'm not going in there.
There must be leak.
We tried to put boosters anywhere. We had no cell service, so we really needed some good, reliable internet. And then Starlink came along.
Mike Lorden and his fiancée Liz Racer are one of more than 10,000 customers using Starlink, SpaceX's ambitious project to build an interconnected network of thousands of satellites to provide high-speed broadband internet across the globe. They've been using Starlink service for about 6 months now, and are documenting their experience of living in a homestead on YouTube.
There are some times when the Starlink does drop out, The dropouts aren't really significant. It seems to be just like short little blips, you know, a couple seconds here and there. The only time that you really notice it is if you're like live streaming or if you're using the Wi-Fi calling option. Other than that, you know, if you're surfing the web or something very fast. So far for what it is, it's a real good connection, you know, considering our
Germany and New Zealand. Experts estimate that there are around 70 million households worldwide that are good candidates for satellite-based consumer broadband and have the capacity to pay. Amid a global pandemic that's kept employees from going to offices and children from schools, the need for universal broadband has become undeniable. If the service expands to its intended global customer base, Starlink could be key to SpaceX's success and Elon Musk's vision for a colony on Mars.
I think it's fair to say that the majority of SpaceX's valuation today is tied to the Starlink business model. Generally speaking, the global launch industry is about a $5 billion a year industry. SpaceX, in previous discussions, has talked about a $30 billion a year opportunity in the Starlink business, looking about 3 to 5 years out.
The basis of Starlink's internet service involves 3 components: a satellite dish, ground stations, and the satellites themselves. The service is meant for customers like Lorden and Racer, who live in a sparsely populated area that's not being served by traditional internet companies.
Given the high cost of laying cable or fiber, which can be as much as $20,000 a kilometer, terrestrial service providers tend to focus on urban and suburban areas where there's high density. It simply does not make economic sense to reach out to consumers in low-density areas.
The only option we really considered was we had a local internet company that wanted to come in. They would have had to erect a tower on the top of our mountain. They maybe could have given us 5 megs a second, and it would have been about the same monthly price as the Starlink service. We have other friends that are in similar situations as us, and they have, you know, those other satellite internet providers, and a lot of them are data capped. Most of the rates are real high.
Starlink customers pay $499 for the hardware needed to connect to the network, and an additional $99 per month for the service. Currently, there are no data usage caps or contracts. So far, SpaceX has launched over 1,000 satellites into orbit, but the company plans to deploy 4,425 satellites by 2024. By the time that SpaceX is done building out its global Starlink satellite system, known as a constellation, the company will have launched about 12,000 satellites. And although not yet approved by the FCC, SpaceX has requested permission to launch an additional 30,000 satellites, which would bring their total to 42,000. Unlike traditional internet satellites, which are as big as a school bus and orbit at around 36,000 kilometers above Earth's surface, Starlink satellites are much smaller and closer, at about 550 kilometers above Earth's surface. But the satellite's closer placement means they can see less of the Earth at any given point in time, which is why SpaceX needs so many. On the flip side, SpaceX claims that this closer orbit allows the system to have a lower signal delay, known as latency. Latency is important for things like video streaming and gaming. Lorden says speeds vary according to factors like weather, but on average he's been getting speeds of about 75 megabits per second for downloads and around 12 megabits per second for uploads. In a filing to the FCC, SpaceX said that Starlink services, quote, meeting and exceeding speeds of 100 megabits per second for downloads and 20 megabits per second for uploads. Musk has said that he expects the service will double in speed by the end of the year. To do this, the company is developing a technology known as intersatellite links.
The basic premise is that you have an optical sensor, which is effectively a laser, that points from one satellite and connects to another optical sensor on another satellite and creates this, unseen path from one to the other. That's this stable connect, almost like a wire. And if you have that stable connection, you can drastically increase the speed because you're now moving signal from one satellite to the other at the speed of light rather than at the speed of whatever's on the ground.
Another benefit is reducing the amount of infrastructure needed.
Given Starlink's current architecture, we estimate that they will need more than 100 ground stations in the U.S. If, however, they move to the laser communications on the satellites, they can greatly reduce the number of ground stations needed, as well as the complexity of the overall system on a global basis.
On the consumer side, Lorden says that working with the technology was simple. SpaceX does not currently provide an installation service, so users are on their own for the most part.
They ship and deliver a big old box to your door, and inside that box, it's really not that many items. It would be the Starlink dish itself, the router, the power supply, and the little tripod mount to set the dish on. And it's super straightforward. Starlink actually has an app that you can download on the phone, and it walks you through everything. Literally just plug this thing into the wall and put the dish where the app tells you to put the dish.
Starlink's dish comes equipped with a built-in heating element, which keeps it free of snow and ice. It's also motorized, allowing the dish to automatically orient itself to stay in line with the satellites overhead. But making its equipment user-friendly has not come cheap for SpaceX.
The biggest challenge that SpaceX is facing with Starlink is also one of the big unknowns about the actual equipment cost itself. People aren't sure exactly how much either SpaceX is paying for or paying to build its antennas. There's been a lot of these kits for $499 a kit, and it costs them $2,000 to make. They're running huge losses to begin with, and they have to get a lot of people on board to make up for that in the long term by charging for service.
Tonight, I'll be eating to set up an internet connection in areas devastated by wildfires. The U.S. Air Force and the Army are also both testing Starlink. There is a huge hunger for investment in satellite internet. The sector could be worth $412 billion by 2040. And it's not just VCs that are investing. Satellite internet is ripe for government subsidies. In Canada, the government of Quebec has invested millions in Telesat. In China, satellite maker ComSat received a massive government investment as part of the country's new infrastructure drive. The US too is betting big. Last year, the FCC awarded Starlink nearly $1 billion in subsidies to bring internet to rural areas. And in late March, President Biden said that his administration would spend $100 billion to expand broadband access to Americans as part of his $2 trillion infrastructure plan. SpaceX is also in talks with the UK, where Starlink could earn funding as part of the country's $6.9 billion internet infrastructure program. But one place where Starlink may not be welcome is in Russia, where the government is reportedly considering enacting fines for individuals who sign for the service. Russia is working on its own satellite internet constellation, which it hopes to begin launching in 2024. Starlink's potential is huge, provided that the project can overcome some major hurdles.
Satellite broadband as a whole is a industry and a sector that is just littered with warning signs and the corpses of former companies that have tried to go out and do what Starlink is doing already.
It's a little discussed secret that all of the successful satellite operators today were subsidized either through government subsidies or through the bankruptcy court in the case of companies like Iridium and Orbcomm that went bankrupt in the 1990s only to recover and come back for a second act. One of the challenges building out a new satellite network is all of the capital expenditure needs to go up front before the very first customer can be signed up. And that creates a really tough financial model in terms of generating the revenue to both pay for the existing constellation as well as the follow-on satellites that will be needed to continue the service.
SpaceX's leadership about 2 or 3 years ago estimated that they thought it would cost upwards of $10 billion to get Starlink running at an operational capacity. That's probably a pretty fair estimate still today.
Starlink is still fairly early on in development, so it's not perfect. SpaceX makes this clear on its website, saying that there may be periods when customers experience no connectivity, but service will improve as the company launches more satellites. However, having thousands of new satellites orbiting the Earth comes with its own set of problems.
Initial launch of SpaceX's Starlink satellites in May of 2019 took astronomers by surprise. They didn't realize how bright the satellites would be, especially as they're raising up to final orbit, how many there would be.
So if you looked up, you would see this long line of like what looked like slow-moving shooting stars, all in a perfect line going across the sky. So people call them Starlink trains. Now, that brought up a pretty significant issue, which is because they were so bright, they were so clustered together, and there was increasingly more and more of them covering different parts of the sky. Astronomers started seeing them pop up and really ruining different imagery and causing all sorts of distortion and effects and things like that.
This image, taken from a telescope in Chile in November 2019, illustrates the problem. The telescope, meant to see images of distant stars and galaxies, instead captured the light trails of 19 Starlink satellites. While some image processing tools can be used to remove the trails, Walker says it's not 100% effective. But SpaceX has not ignored the problem.
The American Astronomical Society, the AAS, and Noir Lab and others contacted SpaceX, and ever since then they've been so generous with their time, and what was just a passing interest in our concerns became about half a dozen people that they have on staff that are dedicated to finding out mitigation solutions.
SpaceX originally tried to paint them like this dark material. The problem was they were still too bright generally, and they also got pretty hot. They instead came up with what are known as sun visors, and it helps keep the reflectivity of the solar panels from creating a lot of light and a lot of brightness. The other thing they did is they changed the orientation of the satellites themselves so that they were more on like this knife's edge, so instead of the whole panel catching the sunlight and reflecting it down to Earth, it was just only a piece of it.
The huge concentration of satellites also worries radio astronomers, who say that the interference from radio frequencies of internet satellites could hinder the ability of their instruments to look for organic and water molecules in space. Then there's the problem of congestion. Since Russia first launched Sputnik in 1957, over 10,600 objects have been sent into outer space. If SpaceX were to launch all the satellites that it's requested, the company would, by itself, be responsible for almost a fourfold increase in the number of spacecraft launched by all of humanity. And with the lifetime of Starlink satellites only being around 5 years, experts are also worried about space debris. An idea known as the Kessler syndrome summarizes just how detrimental having free-floating junk in space can be.
The Kessler syndrome can be described as two satellites that collide and they create more debris that will collide with other satellites, and this creates orbits that are just unusable.
For its part, SpaceX has said that it plans to deorbit satellites that are nearing the end of their life by pushing back into Earth's atmosphere, where they burn up during re-entry.
All of SpaceX's satellites have propulsion systems on board, which theoretically are more than sufficient to deorbit a satellite in a very reasonable period of time. However, if the satellite communication is lost, which has happened in certain cases, you lose the ability to tell the satellite to deorbit itself. In other cases, the propulsion system itself may have failed. And when you're launching over 4,000 satellites, all it takes is a very small failure rate to create a lot of space debris.
Jonathan McDowell, an astronomer at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, has been tracking Starlink's failure rates and says they've improved. For now, dealing with space debris is still largely left up to individual companies.
There is no enforceable law that can cause a company to deorbit a satellite that has failed. Generally speaking, the FCC, along with other governmental agencies, have rules out, guidelines to deorbit satellites within 25 years, but there's no enforcement mechanism that could cause a company to spend money to actively deorbit a satellite, at least today.
But experts like Walker are pushing for more national and international oversight of satellite makers. The United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs is already looking at ways to mitigate the effects of light and radio pollution coming from satellites. In the US, the Biden administration recently announced that it would continue the National Space Council, which will assist the president in setting national space policies. Plans to spin off Starlink into a separate company have been swirling since last year. Earlier this year, Musk confirmed the idea.
Elon Musk again making headlines this morning, this time with SpaceX, saying its broadband satellite business will go public eventually. Musk tweeting, quote, "Once we can predict cash flow reasonably well, Starlink will IPO," but warning that the business will need to pass through a, quote, "deep chasm of negative cash flow over this year or so to actually make that financially viable."
Spinning off the part of SpaceX that has the most earning potential may seem counterintuitive, but experts say there could be some benefits.
Right now, Starlink is a huge cash use for the SpaceX business. And if it were spun out independently and charging back, paying SpaceX for those launches, it would obviously boost the revenues of the remaining SpaceX business.
If SpaceX is still the majority owner of Starlink after it spins off, then the company can still see that revenue stream, still see the benefits of that service, but it's then de-risking the overall space company, if you will, by having it operate as a separate business, so that if Starlink does fail or does go bankrupt or something bad happens to Starlink, then it's not damaging the core SpaceX business as much as it would as if it was still in the entire private fold of the company.
SpaceX is currently the leader in low Earth orbit satellite internet, but competition is heating up. Amazon has said that it will invest over $10 billion in its satellite internet network known as Project Kuiper. UK satellite maker OneWeb recently launched another 36 satellites into orbit, bringing its total number to 146. The company says it expects to begin limited service by the end of the year, though unlike SpaceX, its service is geared towards enterprise customers. Finally, Canadian satellite company Telesat has said that it will begin commercial services for its satellite internet in the second half of 2023. If Starlink is successful, it may ultimately do more than just fund Musk's vision for a colony on Mars.
SpaceX put in these Starlink terms and agreements that there's a bylaws in regards to how their service will be treated for people on Mars. And so SpaceX is already looking down that path and seeing, okay, well, we can have Starlink satellites around Earth in orbit, but then we can also put them in orbit around Mars, and then just connect the two and have, you know, expansive, not just a global satellite system, but a multi-planetary satellite system.
But for now, Earthlings are glad that Starlink exists, even if it's not yet perfect.
When they first reached out to us, they did label their beta test as the better than nothing beta test, and for people like me, it's 100% better than nothing.
.270 meters in closing. Crew Dragon expected to converge with waypoint 1 directly in front of the International Space Station in less than 5 minutes. You can see the views right over the shoulders of Commander Shane Kimbrough and pilot Megan MacArthur. Kimbrough on the left, MacArthur on the right from the view.
From this view from the International Space Station, you can see what we were mentioning earlier, where Dragon was below the station, and you could see that previously when it had Earth in the background. Now it is almost adjacent, or almost in the same orbit as the International Space Station, as it's making its way to the docking axis at waypoint 1. This maneuver from below the station to in front of the docking port is almost complete, just a few minutes away.
Getting great views from all around, from the station side, from the Dragon side. The outline of the station you see on the displays inside Crew Dragon is in line with the position of where Dragon is relative to the International Space Station. It's almost at the docking axis, about 2.5 minutes to go until it converges with waypoint 1.
And as a reminder, Dragon is flying autonomously, so they aren't using those display panels to fly Dragon, they're just using them to monitor each step of the way. So the crew's basically just patiently waiting until they dock with the station.
now seeing Dragon in a better view, a lot more clear now that it's only 240 meters away. You can see the nose cone clearly deployed, extended towards the space-facing side or zenith side.
A really good zoomed-in view, and you could almost make out the 4 bulkhead thrusters on the forward portion of the Dragon capsule.
There you go. The Cronus is adjusting the aperture of the station cameras.
Dragon SpaceX on the Big Loop. Approach 1 and soft capture ring extension will begin shortly. Dragon will continue to waypoint 2, with the additional lighting assessment occurring at 110 meters, as previously noted. For awareness, if sunlight results in the loss of the Dragonite geofilters, Dragon will autonomously retreat back to waypoint 1, remaining on closed-loop control using the time-of-flight filters. I'll copy.
We are in a handover period, so we may have missed a call as we were switching from Tedra's satellites. We're looking at about 20 seconds to go until we converge with waypoint 1. There's going to be an approach burn maneuver using the Draco thrusters. It's called approach 1. That'll move Dragon from right in front of the docking axis 220 meters away and start moving in, closing in to waypoint 2, just 20 meters away from the docking axis. Of course, they'll be monitoring along the way.
We did hear the Corps mention that they are going to have a checkpoint to make sure that there isn't too much sunlight on the space station, which will prevent Dragon from docking. If that does happen, Dragon will autonomously back out and wait until the sunlight has cleared to ensure a good docking with the space station. Because this is all autonomous, it uses some visual cameras to align with the docking port. So it's really important that we don't have that sunlight getting in the way.
SpaceX has you loud and clear on the Big Loop. Helm me.
Loud and clear. Your last call, we copied most of it, but you cut out towards the end there. Not sure if there's anything important for us.
Copy. I'm going to repeat the end of the call. We did have a Tedra's handover. Just for awareness, following the lighting assessment, if we continue but sunlight results in a loss of the Dragonite geofilters, Dragonite will autonomously retreat back to waypoint 1, still on closed loop control using the time-of-flight filters. I'll copy.
Okay, we copied all. Thank you very much for repeating.
No problem, Shane. And for awareness, the C2V2 link reconfiguration has been completed.
C2V2 complete.
Yeah, the Corps just reiterated that they will be checking to make sure that the sunlight is not in the way of the visual systems between Dragon and the space station. If that does happen, Dragon will autonomously retract and wait until we do get some good visual views for these systems to dock with each other. So.
That's right. Crew Dragon Resilience actually coming into view a little bit clearer now from the cameras aboard Dragon. Docked to the Zenith port.
Yeah, That was on the upper portion of the screen.
That's right. Now again, to reiterate, Dragon has passed waypoint 1, 220 meters in front of the station, executed a burn maneuver to go ahead and move in, so we're in approach 1, and it's heading towards waypoint 2. Now inside the keep-out sphere. It's currently in the process of extending its soft capture ring that will be used to dock to the international docking adapter of the forward port. We're monitoring the visual systems of Dragon. It would execute an automatic retreat if the sun was interfering with the optical systems as it makes its way towards an approach. We're at about 150 meters away from the station.
We have such a great camera view here. You can really see the detail on Dragon. Again, those 4 bulkhead thrusters. You can almost read the logo, the Dragon logo on the side of the vehicle.
That's right. We'll get even better views as it makes its way even closer to make contact and capture with the space station.
There it is.
Yeah, based on the trajectory here, we may even anticipate a capture a little bit earlier than anticipating. We were looking at about 2:10 a.m. Pacific time. It might be at maybe closer to 2:07 p.m. The features of the space station coming into view very clearly.
And you can see a lot of the detail there, and as you mentioned, the Crew 1 Dragon.
Station on the Big Loop. Procedure complete, ready for docking.
All right, that was confirmation from Victor Glover aboard the International Space Station from the space station side. He is go for docking. The soft capture ring itself is fully extended. We're 115 meters and closing.
Looking at your screen, the port that we are going to be docking with is directly in the middle of the screen, that circular area on the International Space Station.
Report regarding SSC-17 and D2DM. We are seeing some strange configurations on the video, and we would like to close and restart that. We can take care of that from the ground.